Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So today's video is the last video I'm doing sponsored by Meron this Halloween, and what better way to end it than with Pennywise. As always, everything I use in this video will be listed down below, and don't forget to check out the Meron link if you're still after some Halloween supplies. So starting with the head, I feel like I'm a bit of an advantage here because I do have a massive head anyway. But I put my hair into a flattened out bun on the top of my head, and then I'm popping on this bald cap that I've packed out with cotton wool. So I really wanted to make sure that it didn't just look like a lump of cotton wool inside a bald cap stuck on top of my head, which is exactly what it is and exactly how my first attempt looked. But this time I think it turned out a lot better. So what I did this time was feather out the edges of the cotton wool inside the cap once it was on my head, so that there isn't any kind of lump between my head and this new head shape. It flows a lot better. And I really only focused on making the front and the sides look good, since the back is going to be covered by a wig anyway. One thing I do recommend doing, and I do with normal everyday makeup as well, is check what your makeup is looking like in your front-facing camera. It's a lot easier to see if things are even, and you can fix things up along the way instead of getting to the end and then taking your pictures and then noticing that your bald cap is wonky or whatever. Next, I'm adding latex and tissue to the head because it has a bunch of texture and what I think must be like cracked paint on there. I put down some latex first, I added the tissue, pinched the tissue to make some texture, and then I went over the top with even more latex. Obviously this is not very accurate, you would probably have to sculpt a cowl to get exactly the right effect, but it's still going to give you the same kind of vibe. Next, I'm blocking out my eyebrows with a glue stick. First you go against the hair, then brush up or down with a spoolie, and then flatten again with the glue stick. It's super important that this area is nice and smooth in this look, so I definitely recommend doing an extra couple of layers just to make sure. I really packed it on there for this one. If you are going to really pack it on too, make sure you give each layer enough time to dry, especially the thicker layers, or when you add paint on top later, you risk it going all goopy and coming off if the layers underneath aren't fully dry. Then I'm going to cover the brows with liquid latex. I went over my whole forehead actually. Then I'm going to start bringing that texture down from the forehead a little bit more, and you can even use this to hide some of the bald cap line as well. So I have already tried this look before, but it didn't work out, so I do have my wig pieced together already. With medical tape actually, because it's all I had. It was super strong though, so it did do the trick. I took this orange wig that I got from Amazon, I ordered 2 of them, and I cut it up into sections that I could rearrange around the head. The wig already had a slight style and it was already flicked up in one direction, so I used that to my advantage and I used those bits at the side where his hair flicks up too. I stuck the wig down with Pros-Aid, but spirit gum or whatever adhesive you prefer will work just fine. Then I added a bit of backcombing, not a bit of backcombing, quite a bit of backcombing, and a bunch of hairspray. You want to use one of those really strong hairsprays that make your hair nice and crispy, like this one. I will only be listing the Meron products that I use in this video down in the description, but I will be writing a full list of all of the products I used over on my blog. Moving on to paint, I'm appropriately starting with Clown White and I'm applying that all over. Then I decided to go into all of the cracks with the grey paint so that I could go over everything again with the white, but this time I would use a lighter hand so that the white would only hit the highest parts of the texture and then the grey would still show at the lowest points. I don't know whether you could just go in with the grey first and then do the white in the same way, but I only noticed I wanted the grey in there after I'd done the first layer of white. And I also like how this turned out anyway. The grey kind of mixed with the white and gave a more off-white kind of look, so it's up to you. Next, I'm continuing the white down my forehead. To cover the colour of my brows, I did 1 layer, I set it with Colour Stay powder, and then I added another layer over top. Then I'm just going to continue down and do my face and my neck. On my face, I did do a quick base layer of white water-activated paint first, just so that I wouldn't have to do a second layer of the Clown White on my face because it can be quite thick and uncomfortable. You could just use the water activated paint if you wanted, but I freaking suck at using water activated paints and I can't get a smooth finish. So I still wanted to use the Clown White because it's just a product I feel comfortable with, but I didn't want to layer it a bunch, so I threw that other paint down first. So he's a little frowny boy, isn't he? So I'm gonna add some grey shading to give the illusion of having furrowed brows. I guess this is gonna be different for everyone because everyone's bone structure is different, but this is the shape that I followed. Then you usually want to complement a shadow with a highlight, so I kept this front section nice and bright to make it look like this bit was further forward and casting that shadow. You can also go way heavier on the shading if you're wanting his more intense look where he had that bigger brow piece on. As far as I can tell and remember, the lid is just a simple black shadow. I applied liner as a base and then blended that out. Then I set that in place with a black eyeshadow. If you wanted this to look more distressed, then you can totally do that. You could have just left it with the messily blended out eyeliner instead if that's the kind of look you're going for. Now in most photos it doesn't look like there's much going on underneath the eye. I'm pretty sure there is a liner on the waterline, but there's one photo, which is the one I was using for reference actually, and there's quite a bit of smoked out black underneath the eye, and I was way more into that one. For me personally, I like having something underneath my eye, so that's what I decided to go with. Moving on to the brows, I think his brows are like indents into the skin, and I actually sculpted a whole brow piece for the first version of this look I did, but we don't talk about that. It didn't turn out, and I'm sad because I really enjoyed how the sculpt looked, but it's fine. This turned out great. I'm so happy with this. So instead of using a sculpted brow piece, I did my best to give the illusion of an indent with paint instead. So I started by mapping out the shape with a grey paint. Then here I'm using Clown White to clean up the edges and refine the shape. Again, this is where checking in your camera to see if things are even is really going to help you out later on, so you don't get to the end and then realise your brows are wonky. Then once I was happy with the shape, I blended out that top edge. If you're using cream colours, you can just blend out the cream colour, or if you're using a water-based paint that sets, you can go in with an eyeshadow instead. So he's supposed to look baby-faced, right? Literally baby-faced, that was his character design. So he has these adorable full cheeks, and I do not have them. I've done enough makeups in my time to know that shading in cheeks for me just doesn't work with my bone structure. So as much as I would have loved to stay true to the character, I think following some of your usual makeup routines and being able to see yourself in your cosplays is also a great thing. So instead of trying to make my cheeks look more rounded, I just went ahead and added a little bit of contour underneath my cheekbones, like I usually would in my normal makeup. For the nose, I applied a dark red and then blended out that top edge messily with a cotton bud and my finger. And I didn't really know what to do with my nose holes though. I have one of those noses where the tip turns up and you can kind of see into my nose, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. So if I just colored the top, you would have still been able to see my septum, but if I'd taken it down the middle from the front, it would have just looked like an M shape. What I did was I actually went inside my nostrils and across the bottom of my nose too. So for the lips, I made my bottom lip a lot fuller like his. I think he had a piece on his actually. I guess his entire face was covered in prosthetics. Now this is where shit starts to get scary, because you know what is hell to correct? Red paint on top of white paint. And oh boy do I know it, because I messed up the nose on the first try, and I ended up having to take off everything from the bottom of the eyes down because my lovely white paint turned into lovely pink paint. So take it slow. Now you want to go ahead and add the finishing touches like fake teeth and contacts. The contacts I ordered were supposed to be yellow and they arrived and they were green, so I did edit my eyes. And I made the teeth myself with a thermoplastic, which I'll write more about in my follow-up blog post. But then that's it. I finally did it. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It took me so long, but it was so worth it. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you try this look, you know I want to see it, so make sure you send it me on Instagram or Twitter. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.